All right, morning, everybody. My name is David Soren. I'm the lead pastor here at Renovation Church. Hey, before we get started this morning, I want to share something with you. As you may know, we are very passionate about house church here at Renovation Church. In fact, an astounding number, 80% of our adults participate in a house church every single week, which is amazing because it gives you this place where you can go deeper in your faith. And honestly, it gives you a small church community, as house churches have 40, 45 people on a roster. So this is a small church of people where you can be known. If you're not in a house church yet, get in one, okay? Because you honestly, you can't really grow in your Christian faith if you're doing this on your own. Christianity is not a solo sport. Some of you have said to me over the past few weeks, well, there's only one open or two open. We've actually reopened several of the groups. So now there's a group that you can join on almost any night of the week. But I'm talking to you about house church this morning because we need your help. Our church is growing so fast that we just need more people to host house churches. In fact, if you can sign up to host, I want you to know that a host is not the leader of the group. They are merely the person who is opening up their home, and they're a part of the group. What we're looking for are 3 more hosts. One for a brand new group that we're going to be starting in January on Wednesday nights, and then 2 for existing groups. In fact, this is such a need, but we're trying to meet it because we're trying to get people in community still. But I want you to know what's happening right now is there are actually multiple families in our church that are hosting multiple house churches throughout the week. That's hard. Right? That's a strain. We are grateful for them. We're thankful, but I don't want them to keep doing that. And so my question for you this morning is, do you have a house? Does it have rooms? Do you live within 15 minutes of this building? If you just answered yes to all 3 of those questions, it sounds perfect. I would thank you so much. But seriously, God has blessed so many of you with a house. Right? I encourage you, use it for ministry. Don't just say, oh, somebody else is going to do this. They're probably not. Okay, we need you. If you can do this, what I want you to do is you can either email our office later, or honestly, the best thing to do would be to go out to our welcome table out there in the lobby afterwards and say, we can do this. We can help. God has given us the ability to do this. And the Lord is bringing so many people here and so many people getting saved. We want to help. Okay? All right, great talk. Okay, I especially appreciated your part in the talk. It was wonderful. Let's get into our message. We are continuing in our series on Proverbs 1 through 9 in the Bible, where we are learning the ways of the wise. So let's jump into the Word of God. Grab a Bible, whether you brought your own, if you're using one at church, you just can go to page 435. We're going to see in the Bible today that the Bible has wisdom for pretty much everything. Already in this fascinating series on Proverbs, we've covered such diverse topics as things like gambling, who to get advice from, how to pursue wisdom, how to serve the needy, how to adultery-proof your marriage. So all over the gamut here. And today, King Solomon is going to be talking about the continuum of taking responsibility. So let's take a look at this very practical advice, starting verse 1 of chapter 6. So you just need to find the big number 6 as we're at the beginning of the chapter. Okay, it says, my son, if you have put up security for your neighbor, if you have shaken hands in pledge for a stranger, you have been trapped by what you said, ensnared by the words of your mouth. Okay, so let me just pause there for a second. The passage today is going to be about this continuum of taking responsibility. And the first half of it, in fact, the first 5 verses or so, are going to be a section on this. They will be a warning about taking too much responsibility for other people. Now, if you're not a finance person, that's fine, but let me just sort of explain to you the financial arrangement that Solomon is talking about in these first few verses so that contextually this passage makes sense to you. So he's warning his son against engaging in what we most likely today would call co-signing on a loan. Okay, so in the Bible times, this is what it looks like. Let's just do a scenario. Okay, let's say you live back in Bible times and your friend comes up to you and they say, I've got a great idea. I'm going to start a fishing business on the Sea of Galilee, right? And they come to you and they ask you, after they give this incredible pitch, and they say, will you put up your house as security? Okay, that's what verse 1 was talking about. Did you see where it said security? It says, if you have put up security for your neighbor. So what that means when Solomon says that is Your friend is there not asking you for a donation. Okay, they're not asking you for an investment on the new business. What they're doing is they're saying, I don't currently have enough financial standing to get a loan, right? So I can go out and get the boats and start my fishing business. So I need you to be my security. So it will work if the lender understands that if for some crazy reason I can't make the payments, then they can take your house as a backup plan. Right? That's what he's talking about. And then if you put up your house as security, then I am going to get the money for the loan to start the business, because the lender knows that no matter what happens, they're going to get their money either way. But trust me, it's never going to happen. I'm going to make all the payments. So what Solomon is saying in the beginning of chapter 6 here is he's saying to his son, don't do that. He's saying, I cannot advise you, my son, to enter into financial agreements like that. And then he's going to give advice to those who have already done so. So let's keep reading. Verse 3. Verse 3 says this, so do this, my son, to free yourself, since you have fallen into your neighbor's hands. Go to the point of exhaustion and give your neighbor no rest. Allow no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids. Free yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, like a bird from the snare of the fowler. So he's saying, if for some reason you're already in this agreement and you've signed up to kind of be backup payments for someone if they can't make their payments, he's saying, get out of the deal. Go as far as not allowing yourself to sleep until you're out of it. Why? Well, because you're putting yourself, your family, maybe your future family at risk. And God doesn't want you to put anything at risk that you can't afford to lose. Okay, this is sound financial advice. Now, I don't know if you know this about me or not, but I'm a pastor. I am not a financial advisor, okay? So what I did this week is I reached out to several different professional financial advisors in our church. And I said, here's the text this week. You know, the Bible is fascinating. We get all sorts of topics at this church when we just teach through the Bible, right? Last week, adultery. This week, co-signing on a loan, okay? And so I said, here we are. I said, I'm very curious to know how you, as a professional, as an expert in modern day, how do you advise your clients on this topic? Would you ever advise someone to co-sign on a loan? Okay, here's what they said. One person said, a financial advisor said, I don't recommend co-signing to my clients if there is any other option, because it can definitely impact your credit score and also potentially really damage a relationship if things don't work out. Another said, co-signing comes with far more issues than solutions. And still other people said to me, hey, if you're going to do this, don't do this unless you are able and willing to pay it all off as a gift. And I think this begs an interesting question for us, just applicationally, because for a lot of us, you're probably not going to co-sign on a business loan for a stranger or a random acquaintance. Where this is most likely going to apply to us is, okay, is there a close friend in your life? Or honestly, for most of us, it's should you co-sign on a loan for your adult child, right? That's the question. All I can tell you is, remember, we've been talking about this all series. Hermeneutically, Proverbs are principles, okay? They're not absolutes that apply to every single unique situation. But that being said, they are weighty principles, and they are full of wisdom. So if you're not going to take this advice, then you're going to want to deeply pray about it, right? And seek godly advice from godly people. Now, we're going to come back to this later, but for now, I want to keep us moving in the text. So let's go to verse 6. Solomon's going to begin to shift the weight of this now to the other side of the continuum. He says, verse 6, go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. Okay, so what's going to happen here is Solomon is going to start talking about the other end of the continuum of taking responsibility. So let me show you what this means. So number one, we already talked about there are some people, okay, maybe it's half the room, where they need, honestly, a warning about taking too much responsibility for other people. And maybe the other half of us in the room, what we need is the other continuum, the other side of the continuum of taking responsibility. And honestly, we need an encouragement to start taking more responsibility for ourselves. That's really what this section of chapter 6 is about. So here Solomon says, okay, if you're lazy, really he has this old-fashioned diss, he says, sluggard, right? Which, let's bring that back. I like it, okay? He says, all right, listen, sluggard, look at the ant. Now, you came to church this morning probably assuming that you were going to learn from a pastor, but actually we are going to learn from the ant this morning. This is great. I have not one, not two, but 5 lessons for you, all from the ant. So let's take a look at this. First lesson, number 1, is this: plan ahead, okay? So what does Solomon say about the ant? He says, even the ant stores up provisions ahead of time. Right? And they bring in the food when it's time. So, okay, let me talk for a second, especially to those of you that are in college right now, those of you in your 20s. I know we have a lot of you in this church. He's talking to you right now. And my question for you is, have you actually begun to sit down and say, this is the direction I want to go with my life? I want to start planning for what's going to happen in my life. Because here's the deal. You can blink and you're 30. Right? It comes fast. James chapter 4 in the New Testament says that your life is a mist. It appears for a little while and then it vanishes. Okay, life is very, very quick. And so if you haven't yet started to take responsibility for your own life, this very, very short life that God has given you, and started to plan out, what am I going to do with the time that God has given me? Now is the time. And you got to do this yourself. Okay, that's why Solomon says in the text, look at the ant. The ant has no commander. It doesn't have a boss telling them what to do. It doesn't have a parent saying, if you don't do this, you're grounded, right? They just got to do it. And some of you are at this stage where now, biblically even, it's time. It's time to take responsibility for your life. At minimum, what you need to do is set a general direction for where you're going. Okay, you don't have to know exactly where you're going to be 10 years from now, but a general direction. Are you going this way? Are you going this way? Are you going this way? And just start moving in faith. That's taking responsibility. However, for a lot of us, talk like this, it just starts to feel overwhelming, right? Like maybe you just hate the question when like your aunts or your uncles, they come up to you and they say, so what are you going to do with your life? And you just die inside when they ask you that question. You just want to throw the covers back over your head, right? Well, to that, Solomon just continues to give us more hard words. I'm really sorry, but it's what it is. Okay, in verse 9, he says this: how long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. And poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. Okay, so here we see a second lesson from the ant, from the passage, and it is this. Number 2, get out of bed. Okay, some days, sometimes of life, some seasons of life, getting out of bed is half the battle. Do you know what I mean? If you've never had a season like that, then you've had a blessed life, okay? Sometimes that's half the battle, is just getting out of bed. But what happens is Solomon says, but the sluggard, right, the lazy, the procrastinator, we keep saying, this is verse 10, we keep saying, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. I'll just stay in bed. I'll just kind of keep scrolling, keep streaming. I guess this evening I'll just keep gaming. And honestly, you can just sleep through life for years, right? For years, not taking responsibility for what you need to do next. By the way, did you know that ants take a lot of naps? It's true. Go ahead and guess. Actually, go ahead and shout this out loud. I want you to guess. How many naps per day do you think the average ant takes? What do you think? 17. Somebody said 100, and don't laugh at them. They're closer than the rest of you. It's actually 250. But here's the thing. Remember, the ant is not the mascot of the lazy. The ant is the mascot of the hard worker, of the efficient, of the diligent. Did you know the average ant nap lasts for 1 minute and 9 seconds? That is a power nap right there, right? Quick nap, back to work, okay? That's what they do. But sleep for a lot of us, it isn't just to quickly restore. Sleep for a lot of us actually becomes almost escapism, right? And you don't want to get out of bed because you don't want to face your family. You don't want to face the world. You don't want to face your problems. You're hoping they're just going to go away. And I'm just telling you, they won't. At some point, you have to face it. So I want to set a goal for every single person in this room. Here it is. Okay, this is tough. Tomorrow morning, what I want you to do, are you ready? Is not hit the snooze button. Some of you just went, I've been coming to this church for years. That is the hardest word you've ever given me. Pastor, I just don't know. By the grace of God, maybe, right? Tomorrow morning, wake up and say, Proverbs 6, it tells me learn from the ant. I'm going to be like the ant. I've had enough sleep. I'm getting out of bed. I'm going to face the day. By the grace of God and the power of God, I'm going to start to face the problems in front of me. For some of you, that would just be huge in your life right now. Okay, let me show you another lesson from the ant, and I think this would be good to learn the ways of the wise. Number 3, it's not about hard work. It is about hard work, not talent. Now, notice Solomon, he doesn't say, look at the bear, or look at the lion, right? He says, look at the ant. Why? Because it's not about your raw strength. It's not about natural abilities. Honestly, if you really want to see success, you want to see change in your life, in your family, sometimes it is as simple as just putting in the work. Now, I think this is an important side note, especially for a Bible teaching church like this. If you haven't read much of the wisdom literature of the Bible, that's this kind of small middle section of the Bible. It includes like Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. If you're not very familiar with this section of the Bible, then verses like this, or even messages like this one, they can start to kind of surprise you, right? Because most of us are more used to kind of the verses from the New Testament that say things like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? So it feels weird. I dare say it feels almost wrong to our Christian ears, right? When we get to verses like this that teach something as simple as hard work pays off. And yet remember, right, the basic crux, the basic teaching of Proverbs 1-9 is to outline for you the ways of the wise. How do wise people live? And there is indeed great wisdom in learning hard work and in taking responsibility. And listen, let's not over-spiritualize things. Okay, anytime you're going to bring change to your life, it has to be a combination of God working and you working. Okay, even take something as spiritual as reading the Bible every day. It's not like, if you're going to read the Bible every morning, it's not like God wakes you up and then lifts you out of bed right over to your chair, and then he floats the Bible over into your lap and begins, in the beginning, reading to you. No, you have to not hit the snooze button and get out of bed, right? It takes hard work. It takes discipline. We call them spiritual disciplines for a reason, right? There is a benefit of hard work. It's not all just about talent and giftedness. Sometimes I think we don't get this principle very well in our American culture, right? Especially if you are a millennial, if you're Gen Z. We have any millennials, Gen Z in the room? Look at you like, well, I'm actually kind of Gen X. I'm not going to raise my hand. Oh, good for you. All right. If you're a younger person, right, you're maybe 40 or under, there's a high chance that you are obsessed with personality tests. And you feel so special, and you're looking at your life, you know what I am? I am an Enneagram 1. Not number 2, not number 3. I'm a 1. You know what I am? I am the 4 best letters of the alphabet. I am an ESTJ on the Myers. Listen, I'm sure that your personality is great. Congratulations. And yes, God has indeed gifted you in unique and specific ways. But look at me. He gifted you so you could use your gifts, not just feel good that you have them. I think often the difference between success and failure is something as simple as hard work, not just your giftings. I remember when I was a senior in high school, at the very end of the year, it was announced that I was going to be one of the valedictorians of our class. And one of my classmates, later that day after the announcement was made, he pulled me aside in science class and he said, hey, no joke, this is what he said. He said, I just want you to know, you may get good grades, but just so you know, I'm smarter than you. And I just remember thinking, well, this is awkward. But let me be real with you. I actually didn't disagree with what he said. I actually tied with 4 other kids, but I always felt like I was the dumbest valedictorian. But I worked the hardest. And I've thought about that awkward interaction several times over the years, and I think it's just a good encapsulation of how we think as modern day Americans. And we just have got to move past this type of thinking where we say, I am special simply because I possess a certain ability or talent. That's great that you have that, but at the end of the day, you've got to take the talent that God has given you, and you've got to get out in the real world, and you've got to put it to work. Otherwise, all you're doing is what Jesus taught on in Matthew 25, in the parable of the talents. All you're doing is just burying the talent that God gave you to be used for his glory. Let me give you another lesson from our friend the ant. Lesson number 4. Stop talking about what you will do and start doing something. So again, Solomon, he doesn't say look at the philosopher. He doesn't say look at the thinker. He doesn't say look at the one who has all of the ideas. What does he pick? The ant. He wants you to focus on the doer. Look at Proverbs 14. We'll just put it on the screen. 14:23 says, all hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. I think this is also a cultural problem for us. We love talking about what we're going to do. I think of it this way. We've done, I don't know, what feels like somewhere between 125 to 150 interviews on our staff, probably just in the last 3 or 4 years as our church continues to just grow exponentially. And we're just hiring staff constantly. But I remember we were doing this interview maybe 4 years ago, and Rachel Cheney, who's kind of the number 2 at our church, she's our executive director, one of the sharpest leaders I've ever worked with. We finished the interview and we're debriefing, and I said, I thought it was a pretty good candidate. It just seemed like a visionary. They were talking about where they thought they could take the ministry. And she stopped me and she just said, David, no, everybody nowadays is a visionary. Is that anybody can sit in an interview and share their opinion on how things should be. But that doesn't mean that they've ever actually done anything. And so don't fall into this American modern trap where you trick yourself into thinking I'm going in the right direction just because you're talking about it. If you want to see real change at work, in your marriage, if you want to see real change in your kids, in your family, don't just talk about it. You actually have to take steps to do something about it. And it doesn't have to be massive. I think this is where a lot of us get caught up. And this, I think, in fact, is the 5th reason why Solomon is using the ant here in Proverbs chapter 6. Number 5, just start small. I think too many of us, we just never get off the couch to go out and share our faith with someone, right? Or we never get up in the morning to just have the discipline of being in God's word every morning. Or we never get online to apply for a job again. Because honestly, for a lot of us, it just feels too big, too intimidating. Okay, just be like the ant. Just start small. So let's say God has been nudging you to go back to school, and you're thinking, but I'm 35. I'm 50. And you go, I feel like he's leading me, but it's just so much. Okay, just start small. Just say, okay, tonight, I'm gonna set my timer for like 30 minutes on my phone, and I'm just gonna Google schools, and when the timer goes off, I'm done, okay? All right, you started, okay? Or if you've been feeling like you need to start your own business, and then maybe the Lord's leading you to that, but you're going, this is such a big thing. Okay, just start small. Just text somebody you know who's done it and say, can I just buy you lunch? And ask you questions. If you've been feeling, maybe after last week's message, you left feeling like, I've got to put more intentional effort into my marriage, right? The best defense is a good offense. But you're going, where do I start? Okay, just start small. After the service today, just walk down to the library here and just pick up a book on marriage. We've got a ton of them, and just start working on it. Just start. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 4 says this. It says, a sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. All that's saying is this: if you continue to just hit snooze, lay in bed, you can't get off your phone, you can't stop gaming for hours at night, you never are like putting your life into action, you're going to feel this emptiness in your spirit. And that is simply because God has gifted you to do something, not just be entertained by something. So take a step, and it can be the smallest of things. Let me explain it this way. I actually want to show you a clip here from a commencement speech at the University of Texas. It was given by retired U.S. Navy Admiral William McRaven. Take a look at this.
I've been a Navy SEAL for 36 years, but it all began when I left UT for basic SEAL training in Coronado, California. Basic SEAL training is 6 months of long, torturous runs in the soft sand, midnight swims in the cold water off San Diego, obstacle courses, unending calisthenics, days without sleep, and always being cold, wet, and miserable. It is 6 months of being constantly harassed by professionally trained warriors who seek to find the weak of mind and body and eliminate them from ever becoming a Navy SEAL. But the training also seeks to find those students who can lead in an environment of constant stress, chaos, failure, and hardships. To me, basic SEAL training was a lifetime of challenges crammed into 6 months. So here are the 10 lessons I learned from basic SEAL training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed.
By the way, the number one comment on YouTube on this video says this. It says, "What a speech. I just made the bed and I'm in a hotel." Okay. Here's where I think the whole passage of Proverbs 6 begins to come together. Think about how the lessons of the ant connect even to where we started with Solomon's advice about loans and finances. Solomon is saying this. He's saying, if you continue on this one end of the continuum and you continue to just take too much responsibility for other people's lives, what happens is they actually never learn responsibility themselves. Okay, this is so important, especially for those of you who are parents of teenagers, right, and young adults. As one of our financial planners replied back to me this week, she said this. She said, often the best thing for your young adult child is not for you to co-sign on a loan, but for them to learn to find a cheaper car, or for them to learn about delayed gratification, or for them to learn to save longer. That's the best way you can serve your child. And so biblically here, one of the things you can do as a parent is and it's hard, but you are intentionally, through the wisdom of the word, through the wisdom of God, you are intentionally pulling away so that they themselves can learn the wisdom of the ant. And sometimes that's painful, but those are important lessons. And if you're on the other side of the continuum and you do need to start taking more responsibility for yourself, start today. Just start today. If you need to make an appointment with a financial planner, start today. Start looking on YouTube for financial resources, right? Start learning today. Start reading the Bible today, right? Today, make a doctor's appointment, even if it's been 10 years. It's just a small thing, but it's a start, right? Start today, even with just making your bed, okay? Learn from the ant, trust in the ways of the wise. Let me pray. God, thank you so much for all the interesting chapters of the Bible that we get to go through as we teach through your word. We thank you for Proverbs 6. Lord, just help us as we try and let go of responsibility or take more responsibility. I just pray over all the people of this church, God, that you would give them practical steps, even just the smallest, tiniest of steps that they can take this week to just trust in your wisdom. It's in your name we pray. Amen.